Just northwest of Denver and southeast of Boulder is the suburb of Westminster, Colorado. A city of about 100,000 people, considered a nice, safe place to raise a family. At least, that's what everyone believed before May 2012. On the 28th of May, a 22-year-old woman was out walking around Kettner Lake, a picturesque 50-acre park with a 1-mile trail around the water. As she ran along the quiet path in the early afternoon, a man suddenly ran up behind her. He grabbed her arms and pressed a cloth over her mouth. She immediately noticed a strong chemical smell coming from the cloth. The woman was fortunate. Even though she was terrified, she managed to fight off her attacker and run for help. She called the police and described her attacker as a white male, about 5 feet 8 inches tall, with brown hair and an average build. He was wearing a blue baseball cap, a black t-shirt, jeans, and sunglasses. The Westminster police created a sketch based on her description and collected DNA from the scene. But months went by, and they still couldn't find any suspects. What they didn't know was that the attacker was 17-year-old Austin Sigg. Austin's problem started years earlier. When he was just 12, his stepmother found porn on his computer and sent him to a faith-based therapist. Austin wrote a note to the therapist saying, "I have an addiction to porn, and I would like to stop." But this wasn't ordinary pornography. Austin was addicted to child pornography. Austin went through therapy, and his therapist suggested his father add parental controls to his computer. But like many teens, Austin quickly figured out how to get around those controls. His addiction only grew worse from there. To his friends and fellow students, Austin Sigg seemed like a relatively normal kid. Some described him as a bit of a goth, but he was well-liked, smart, and often called a total sweetheart. He had a collection of swords and knives, but to most people, he just appeared to be a regular teenager who was into music and video games. What his classmates didn't know were the dark, disturbing thoughts swirling around in his head. Austin left high school early to attend Warren Tech, a local technical school where he earned his GED. After that, he enrolled at Arapahoe Community College. He was eager to move on from high school and focus on his real passion, mortuary science and crime scene investigation. But Austin's obsessions ran deeper. Alongside his addiction to pornography, he developed a disturbing fascination with dead bodies and decomposition. He would even bring dead rats home from school to study their decomposition in detail. Austin's father, Robert Sigg, was a wealthy businessman, but he had a long criminal record. Robert had a federal conviction for bank fraud and had been charged with a variety of crimes, including assault, burglary, domestic violence, drug distribution, DUI, and resisting arrest. By the time Austin turned 17, his obsession with child pornography had escalated to include fantasies of violence and death. On his iPhone, Austin kept horrifying photos and videos depicting children, bondage, rape, and even human dismemberment. On October 5, 2012, 5 months after the attack on the jogger at Kettner Lake, 10-year-old Jessica Ridgeway began her walk to school like she did every other day. Jessica was excited about becoming a teenager, only 3 more years to go. She loved pretending to be a waitress and a cheerleader, was a big fan of math, and her favorite color was purple. She was known for her bright purple glasses and the tiny gap in her front teeth. Jessica's mother worked the night shift from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., which allowed her to see Jessica off to school each morning before going to sleep for the day. Jessica usually walked to school with a young boy from down the street. Every morning at 8:25 a.m., she would call the boy's father to let him know she was on her way. On that fateful morning, Jessica kissed her mother goodbye, put on her black puffy coat, and headed out the door at 8:30 a.m. But even though the boy lived just a few houses away, Jessica never made it to his house. The boy's father assumed that Jessica's mother had decided to drive her to school instead. When Witt Elementary School noticed that Jessica hadn't shown up, they called her mother, Sarah Ridgeway. But because Sarah had just finished her night shift, she was still asleep, and the call went straight to voicemail. It wasn't until Sarah woke up at 4 p.m. and heard the voicemail that she realized something was terribly wrong. Panic set in as she frantically searched the route Jessica would have taken to school. She checked her friends' homes and the nearby parks, but there was no sign of her daughter. At 4:30 p.m., Sarah reported Jessica missing, and the search began immediately. Police questioned school faculty and went door-to-door along Jessica's route to school, hoping for any leads. Volunteers and firefighters joined in, and an Amber Alert was issued at 9:15 p.m. By morning, more than 1,000 people were out searching for Jessica, making it one of the largest searches in Colorado's history. Divers were sent into Kettner Lake, while sniffer dogs and helicopters scoured the area, but there was no trace of Jessica. Despite their relentless efforts, the crucial first 48 hours passed without any clues. On Sunday, October 7th, 6 miles away from where Jessica went missing, a man found a backpack in his yard. Unaware of the news about the missing girl, he posted about the backpack on a local social media page, mentioning that it contained a keychain with the name Jessica Ridgeway. Others in the group quickly informed him that Jessica was the missing girl, prompting him to turn the backpack over to the police. Inside the backpack, investigators discovered Jessica's purple glasses and the clothes she was wearing when she left for school that morning. Her clothes were soaked in urine. DNA analysis of the backpack revealed DNA from someone other than Jessica, most likely her abductor. When this DNA was checked against databases, it was also matched to the DNA from the person who had attacked the jogger at Kettner Lake. 5 days after Jessica went missing, maintenance workers were in Patridge Park open space, 9 miles southwest of Jessica's home in Nevada. They noticed something odd in a patch of tall whiskey grass, a large black garbage bag. When they opened the bag, they found a small human torso inside. Nevada police, Westminster police, and the FBI worked together, processing the grim scene throughout the night under floodlights. The torso was missing its arms, legs, and head and had been wiped clean, but not well enough. Police were able to retrieve DNA from the torso, and it matched the DNA from the backpack and the Kettner Lake jogger. The next morning, investigators delivered the heartbreaking news: the torso was indeed the remains of 10-year-old Jessica Ridgeway. A wave of anguish and fear swept through the community of Westminster and the surrounding cities. Parents began taking time off work to personally ensure their children's safety on the way to school. The city, once a place where doors were left unlocked and children played freely, had lost its sense of security in an instant. Jessica Ridgeway's funeral was held on October 16th, and her favorite color, purple, was everywhere. More than 2,000 people attended to say their final goodbyes. Her mother wore a purple ribbon in her hair, mourners released purple balloons into the sky, and Colorado Governor John Hickenlooper wore a purple shirt as he spoke, sharing the sadness felt across the entire state of Colorado. In the days following Jessica's tragic death, over 700 local residents voluntarily provided DNA samples to help with the investigation. One of those samples came from 17-year-old Austin Sigg. Austin had been studying crime scene investigation and believed he was careful enough to leave no trace. Confident in his ability to avoid detection, he allowed investigators to swab his cheek without hesitation. But in a twist of fate, Austin's DNA sample was mishandled and mistakenly returned to the police with a batch of samples that were not a match. Just 3 days after Jessica's funeral, on October 19th, Westminster police reached out to the public for assistance. They had discovered a small cross near the torso in Patridge Park, possibly from a necklace, and were asking if anyone recognized it. They got a lead. A woman contacted detectives and mentioned that a friend, Mindy Sigg, had a son who wore a cross similar to the one shown on the news. This son lived less than a mile from Jessica's home. When police brought Austin Sigg in for questioning, he remained calm and answered every question. He claimed he was asleep on the morning Jessica disappeared. Despite his calm exterior during the interview, afterward, Austin was visibly shaken. He confided in his friends at Arapahoe Community College, saying he felt sick and wobbly. Austin was convinced that the FBI had matched his DNA to the samples taken from the torso and the backpack. By the night of October 22nd, Austin was in a state of panic and ended up sleeping in his mother's room for comfort. The next day, Austin confessed to his mother, saying, "I am a monster and need to be punished." He detailed what he had done, prompting his mother, Mindy Sigg, to call the Westminster police to report.
Hi, I need you to come to my house. My son wants to turn himself in for the Jessica Ridgeway murder.
Okay, what's the address?
10622 West 102nd Avenue.
And what's going on there? Ma'am,
Not hear me? He just confessed to killing her.
I know. I want you to tell me what's going on. Can you tell me exactly what he said?
But he did it, and he gave me details, and her remains are in my house.
Did you see them?
No.
Is he there with you?
Yes.
Is he cooperative?
Yes.
How old is your son?
17.
What is your son's name?
Austin Sig.
Can you spell it? You said Austin?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and spell his last name for me.
S as in Sam, I-G-G.
I don't exactly get why you're asking these questions. I murdered Jessica Ridgeway.
Okay.
I have proof that I did it. There is no other question. You just have to send a squad car, something down here, and
right.
I will answer all the questions that you want to ask,
okay.
or anyone wants to ask of me as soon as you gotta get down here.
Okay. Austin, I have a police officer that's going to come over to your house, okay? Can you tell me what part of the house that her remains are in?
Underneath the house in a crawl space.
Okay. Did you know Jessica before this?
No. The only other thing that I have done that before this was the Kentner Lake incident where the woman got attacked. That was me as well. And other than that, the only criminal history I have is a speeding ticket.
Okay.
Can you please hurry up? I need to call his dad.
Well,
on my phone.
Ma'am, I understand you want to call your husband, and I'm sorry, but I would like to keep you guys on the phone just until the officers get a little bit closer.
Well, how far are they?
They're going to be there in just a few minutes. Okay, they're going to be there in just a few minutes. Can I get
we can stay on the line, but do you have to keep asking questions?
Okay, no, I don't.
Investigators spent hours questioning Austin Sig as he detailed the horrifying manner in which he abducted and murdered Jessica Ridgeway. On the morning of October 5th, Austin was hiding in the back seat of his Jeep as Jessica walked to school. Despite claiming the choice was random, he had strategically parked near her home, knowing she would pass by. As Jessica walked beside his vehicle, Austin suddenly jumped from the back and seized her. Her screams went unheard. He quickly used zip ties to bind her wrists and ankles, then placed her in the back seat and drove through random streets. By the time they reached his house, the intense fear had caused the 10-year-old to wet herself. Austin claimed they watched a movie and cartoons for 2 hours in his room, during which Jessica repeatedly asked if he knew her mother. He then cut her hair and gave her new clothes, placing her wet clothes into her backpack. Initially, Austin denied assaulting her, but later admitted to multiple assaults, which left her with significant bruises. After assaulting her multiple times, Austin instructed Jessica to face the wall. When she turned around, he attempted to strangle her with zip ties, which he claimed hurt his hands because they didn't give him enough leverage. He then tried to strangle her with his hands, but after 3 minutes, he realized he wasn't strong enough. Eventually, he filled the bathtub with scalding hot water and forced her head under, drowning her. Austin further confessed to investigators that he inserted a small cross into her body and began to cut her apart with a knife and a saw. He severed her arms, legs, and head. While the police did not disclose all details of this gruesome act, Austin revealed that this process satisfied a dark fantasy for him. He cut her hands and feet into smaller pieces, flushed them down the toilet, and then removed her organs, placing them in labeled containers. He stored her skull and other organs in a crawl space at his home. Afterward, Austin sat quietly, staring at the remains of his horrific acts, enveloped by the gruesome reality of his actions. All I could think of was, "Oh God, what have I done?" There is no better word to describe what I have done than evil. At just 17 years old when he committed the murder, Austin Sig couldn't be charged as an adult and wasn't eligible for the death penalty or life without parole. This is because the Supreme Court ruled such punishments too harsh for minors. Instead, he faced charges in juvenile court, though prosecutors were determined to ensure he would never be free again. The charges against him accumulated rapidly. He faced 19 charges in total, including first-degree murder after careful planning, 3 counts of felony murder, sexual assault on a child, second-degree kidnapping and robbery, along with charges for an earlier attempted murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault related to an attack on a jogger at Kettner Lake. Sig admitted guilt to all the charges. His defense claimed he was immature and didn't fully grasp his horrific actions, but the judge didn't accept this argument. On November 20, 2013, Austin Sig received a 40-year sentence for the murder, with an additional 86 years for the other charges, securing his permanent stay in prison. On October 5, 2013, a year after her tragic death, the city of Westminster, Colorado, renamed Jessica's favorite park to Jessica Ridgeway Memorial Park. The park's sidewalks are now engraved with Jessica's beloved knock-knock jokes, and the playground equipment is painted purple, her favorite color.